We're back. It's your friendly neighborhood rabbit hole activist. And we're going to continue going over the declassified document before we took a break, or the article at the end of that document anyway, that we didn't finish yet. But today we are going to be going over an oldie but a goodie in the world of UFO, UAP disclosure. We're going to be going over the Twining Memo. And this is a fairly famous piece of disclosure that was written by Air Force Lieutenant General Nathan Twining back on September 23rd, 1947, not too long after Roswell, and it was drafted at the request of Brigadier General George F. Shulgin. I hope I said that correctly. And the topic of this memo is flying discs. So we can see at the top of the memo here some of the official stuff on the letterhead. We can see the date, September 23rd, 1947, the subject, opinion concerning flying discs, and we can see it is to the commanding general of the Army Air Forces with the attention to Brigadier General George Shulgin. Let's get into the memo. Now, like I said, this is a fairly famous piece of disclosure, an oldie but a goodie. It's one of my favorite pieces of disclosure, actually. That and the actual admission and then retraction of a crash in Roswell back in 1947. So here we go. 1. As requested by ACAS2, there is presented below the considered opinion of this command concerning the so-called flying discs. This opinion is based on interrogation report data furnished by ACAS2 and preliminary studies by personnel of T2 and Aircraft Laboratory Engineering Division T3. This opinion was arrived at in a conference between personnel from the Air Institute of Technology, Intelligence T2, Office Chief of Engineering Division, and the aircraft, Power Plant and Propeller Laboratories, and Engineering Division T3. So just setting up the memo here, number 1. Number 2, the opinion. It is the opinion that A, the phenomenon reported is something real and not visionary or fictitious. B, there are objects probably approximating the shape of a disk of such appreciable size as to appear to be as large as man-made aircraft. C, there is a possibility that some of the incidents may be caused by natural phenomena such as meteors. D, the reported operating characteristics such as extreme rates of climb, maneuverability, particularly in roll, and action which must be considered evasive when sighted or contacted by friendly aircraft and radar, lend belief to the possibility that some of the objects are controlled either manually, automatically, or remotely. So A, B, C, and D here telling us that, yeah, sometimes this might be confused with or mistaken for some kind of natural phenomenon such as meteors or swamp gas or weather balloons or whatever the case may be, but that this phenomenon is something real. It's not visionary, it's not fictitious. They're usually about the shape of a disc and they appear to be, about the same size as our aircraft are, and that they display some pretty awesome maneuverability characteristics. They also seem to be evasive when they come into contact with friendly, meaning our aircraft and radar. E, the apparent common description of the objects is as follows. 1, metallic or light reflecting surface. 2, absence of trail except in a few instances when the object apparently was operating under high performance conditions. 3, circular or elliptical in shape, flat on bottom and domed on top. Starting to sound a little bit like what Bob Lazar is talking about as well, isn't it? 4, several reports of well-kept formation flights varying from 3 to 9 objects. So even back in 1947, we were seeing these objects, these flying discs, in groupings of 3 to 9 objects. 5, normally no associated sound except in 3 instances. A substantial rumbling roar was noted. 6, level flight speeds normally above 300 knots are estimated. F, it is possible within the present U.S. knowledge, provided extensive detailed development is undertaken, to construct a piloted aircraft which has the general description of the object in subparagraph E above, which would be capable of approximate range of 7,000 miles at subsonic speeds. G, any developments in this country along the lines indicated would be extremely expensive, time-consuming, and at the considerable expense of current projects, and therefore, if directed, should be set up independently of existing projects. So there, in this memo, hinting at already very early on the idea of compartmentalization and kind of shipping these projects out to independent, maybe defense contractors, or just independently of already existing US military projects. H, due consideration must be given the following. 1. The possibility that these objects are of domestic origin, the product of some high security project not known to ACAS2 or this command. 2. The lack of physical evidence in the shape of crash recovered exhibits, which would undeniably prove the existence of these objects. 3. The possibility that some foreign nation has a form of propulsion, possibly nuclear, which is outside of our domestic knowledge. So some more possibilities on what these flying discs may be, some earthly possibilities. 3. It is recommended that A, Headquarters, Army Air Forces issue a directive assigning a priority, security classification, and code name for a detailed study of this matter to include the preparation of complete sets of all available and pertinent data, which will then be made available to the Army, Navy, Atomic Energy Commission, JRDB, the Air Force Scientific Advisory Group, and the RAND and NEPA projects for comments and recommendations, with the preliminary report to be forwarded within 15 days of receipt of the data, and a detailed report thereafter every 30 days as this investigation develops. A complete interchange of data should be effected. 4. Awaiting a specific directive, ANC will continue the investigation within its current resources in order to more closely define the nature of the phenomenon. Detailed essential elements of information will be formulated immediately for transmittal through channels. And then it's signed by NF Twining, Lieutenant General, USA Command. So like I said at the top, this is an oldie but a goodie, one of my favorites in terms of disclosure information and pieces of evidence. But yeah, that's the Twining Memo for those of you who didn't know, or for those of you who needed a reminder that this exists, and it was written not too long after the Roswell incident. So yeah, and it's good to be back. Until next time.